In this exercise, we're going to begin to add the ornaments around the border of our pages. I've gone ahead and saved my progress as 3styledpages.ai, found inside the 08 type folder. And what I need to do is create a new path outline around which we can adhere those ornaments, that pattern of shell and sun ornaments, as you may recall, these guys right here from the final formatted limerick.ai file. And notice if I click on these ornaments that they are aligned to a slightly smaller rectangle, an inset rectangle on each and every one of the pages. All right, so let's switch back to the document in progress. We're going to model the rectangles on the existing rectangles inside the document. However, just to make sure you understand what's going on, I'm going to tidy things up a little bit. We're going to do some housekeeping initially here. I'm going to click on the rectangle that surrounds the very first artboard, and then I'll expand the pages layer. And notice that the first rectangle is actually the last path in the list. Because I created it first, it's at the bottom of the stack. So I'll go ahead and double click on this guy and rename it page 1. And then presumably the next one up is page 2, because this is the order in which I created the rectangles. And then the final one is page 3. Now, just so that they're in the right order, I'll drag them to different positions like so. That doesn't affect the appearance of my document one iota. Just keeps things a little tidier so that we have a better chance of understanding what's going on. All right, notice that page 1 is currently meatballed. It's a volumetric meatball because we've applied some live effects, the scribble and the offset path and the roughen and so on. So with this first rectangle selected, I'm going to go up to the object menu, I'm going to choose the path command, and I'm going to choose offset path. Now this is the static version of that same offset path effect that we use to adjust the position of the flipped version of the green border, as you may recall. We also used it, by the way, to expand the size of the lavender rectangle in the background. The difference here is that those are virtual effects that are applied on the fly. The offset path command actually changes the nature of the path outline, which is what we need in order to create an inset path on this page. By the way, the advantage of this command is it offsets the sides of the rectangle evenly, both on the right and left edges, as well as the top and the bottom of the path, as opposed to scaling the path proportionally. All right, so I'll go ahead and choose that command. If you load in my D key shortcuts, then you can press Control-Shift-Backslash or Command-Shift-Backslash on the Mac. I find that very helpful because this is one of the most useful commands in all of Illustrator. You'll find yourself using it a lot after a while. Now notice that the offset value in my case is set to -60 point. I'd like you to set yours to that as well. I'm going to turn on the preview checkbox and notice that that doesn't seem to do anything that we want. It goes ahead and moves the entire collection of effects here inward. So we're changing the size of the page. So this yellow parchment is actually smaller. The green border is smaller. Everything's smaller. That's no good, right? Well, it's actually great because the offset path command always generates a clone of the existing path outline. So we're not affecting the original, we're affecting a duplicate. I'll go ahead and click OK, but before I do, I want you to notice this. Notice here inside the pages layer, we have page 1, page 2, page 3. That's it. As soon as I click OK, we have a new thing called path. And just to make it clear what it is, I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to change it to border 1. And I'll click OK. Now, when you look at things out here inside of the illustration window, it looks like we've messed up the document. However, what we really have is border 1 in front of page 1, so the original page is just fine. The problem is that border 1 is covering things up because it has that lavender area that expands 60 points outward, so it's covering up the original page 1. Go over to the Appearance panel. I want you to click on the flyout menu icon, and I want you to choose Clear Appearance, so that we get rid of all the fill and stroke attributes. Now we have no stroke, no fill. We can see through to the page attributes in the background. All right, switch over to the Layers panel. And just to make it clear what we're working with here, this is a text element ultimately. Border 1 is going to contain some text ornaments. I'm going to move it to a different layer. But first, notice if I try to drag this violet square and drop it onto text objects, I get a little no can do. That's because the layer's locked. So I need to click on the lock icon to unlock it, then drag the square and drop it onto text objects, and now it appears orange, thereby indicating that it will be a text object inside of the program. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this corner of the rectangle. The next thing that I want to do is I want to assign text to this path outline. And I'm going to do that using the type tool, just as we did before in a previous exercise. However, in a previous exercise, we were working with open paths. Now we're going to be working with a closed path, a rectangle. So I'll switch to the type tool once again. And notice if I hover over any portion of this path outline, it's a little bit hard to see this cursor, but instead of appearing as an I-beam with a dotted square around it, it appears as an I-beam with a dotted circle around it. And that shows me that I'm going to create area text, that is text inside of this text frame. And that's the assumption Illustrator makes when you click on a closed path. If you want to reverse that assumption, so you want to create text along the outline of closed path or text inside of an open path, then you press and hold the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac. And then notice that we now get an I-beam with a little dotted path outline through it. So anyway, Alt or Option click on the upper left corner of this path outline, and that goes ahead and adds a blinking insertion marker to the top left corner of the rectangle. And we're now ready to add some text to this path, and we will do that as well as see how you work with baseline shift in the next exercise.